I was asked what I think the best way to run Toons is, and I ended up coming to a pretty surprising conclusion. I think it's Toon pendulum, specifically Toon Endymion. Now, the reason that I ultimately came to this conclusion is that in traditional Toon decks, you need to open at bare minimum 2 Toon cards, including a Toon world, in order to play your deck the way that it's intended. However, in this build, you only need to open 1 Toon card in order to end on 3 Toon cards, including a Toon Kingdom, Toon Terror, and a high-level Toon monster. And the best part is, it doesn't actually matter what Toon card you open. You can even open with a traditionally bricky card, like the counter-trap Toon Terror. So what is the synergy between Endymion and Toons? Well, there's quite a bit thanks to the existence of Toon Dark Magician, but the most immediate synergy is Toon Table of Contents. With Toon Table of Contents, on its own, it provides between 4 to 5 spell activations. So you're able to spread spell counters on the field like crazy. If you have cards like Servant of Endymion or Magical Abductor, you can trigger their effects with just 1 Toon Table of Contents and still have leftover spell activations. Now that's far from the only synergy that this mix provides. I personally believe that the best Toon monster is Toon Dark Magician, since it gives you access to the entirety of the rest of the Toon strategy. And this deck gives you access to Toon Dark Magician much more easily than a regular Toon deck would. You're able to revive Toon Dark Magician from your graveyard by using Zeland, and you can get Toon Dark Magician to the graveyard by using Magician's Souls. Magician's Souls is searchable with Magical Abductor, and Magical Abductor is searchable with Servant of Endymion. So you have about 12 cards in your deck that give you direct access to Toon Dark Magician. Another layer of synergy is that it's not just fine to discard your counter trap, you actually want to, because you can reset it with Nightmare Griffin. Hilariously, this means that optimally you're going to be searching your Toon Terror with Toon Bookmark and ultimately discarding it with Toon Dark Magician to finally get to your Toon Kingdom and end up having your full Toon setup. You're not just getting a Toon setup off of 1 Toon card, you're also getting quite a bit of interaction along the way. You should be ending on multiple negates and usually a Zeland with enough counters to keep reviving on the opponent's turn in case your opponent does happen to break your board. In this case, we ended on 5 negates, including the Toon counter trap, so our opponent cannot Dark Ruler our board. We also ended on the Floodgate effect of Nightmare Griffin and a full Pendulum Scale. On top of that, we also have a huge amount of spell counters spread out throughout the field. So we have the ability to use Zeland as many times as we want, essentially, and when it comes back to our turn, we're also going to be able to search off of Magical Abductor. Generally speaking, pendulums are a deck where it's kind of difficult to show combos with because usually pendulums think in terms of combo lines rather than 1 or 2 card combos. But there are some simple interactions that are really good to know here. For example, opening Toon Table of Contents with Sky Striker Mobilize Engage allows you to use Engage's draw effect twice. This makes a small Sky Striker engine something really worth considering in this deck, especially since you only need to run 3 cards. Engage, Hornet Drones, and 1 additional Sky Striker spell of your choice. In this case, I chose to run Eagle Booster because it's the best one to use while going first, since it's really the only one that you can activate while going first if your opponent doesn't do anything. That still provides good utility while going second. Another good interaction to know is if you have Toon Dark Magician plus another level 7, that's usually just a free negation since you can go into Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, link off into Cross Sheep, summon out Vortex Dragon, and then Cross Sheep brings something back and just links off into another Zeland. Another good interaction to remember is the Spellbook Link monster Crowley. If you didn't start with a Spellbook card, this is a free search that is usually just free draws. But additionally, this lets you normal summon a Spellcaster monster without tribute, so if you have some dead cards in hand, like a dead Toon Dark Magician, and you can't get one to grave, you can normal summon it without tribute by going into this Link monster. Last interaction I wanted to talk about is actually shown in this replay. If you draw into 3 or more Toon cards, and in some situations 2 Toon cards, you don't need to make Nightmare Griffin every time because you don't always need to discard Toon Terror. Instead, you can go ahead and make an Appaloosa in order to end on more negates. In this replay, we ended up ending on 6. This last replay demonstrates my favorite interaction within the deck, being that Toon Table of Contents is searchable. So if you happen to open no spells in your opening hand, but you open a Toon card and a way to get out Toon Dark Magician, you can discard whatever that Toon card is and search Toon Table of Contents. This is good in order to get spell counters on field, but it's also really important to remember that Zeland gains spell counters equal to the number of spells in grave and on field. So even if you don't need to distribute spell counters on the field, it's still good to go ahead and go through your Toon Table of Contents in order to ensure that your Zeland has the maximum amount of counters possible. And before I get to the deck profile, I did want to talk about one last thing, and that is some of this deck's weaknesses. Now you can play through hand traps pretty well, and you can negate them too by using Mythical Beast Jackal King. However, keep in mind that Mythical Beast Jackal King can only negate monster effects, so if your opponent has a well-timed impermanence, that can hurt quite a bit. The other hand trap I would definitely watch out for is Droll and Lockbird. That card can hurt a lot and you do a lot of searching. So I would consider main decking Psyframe Gear Gamma, if not, definitely side deck it. The other thing I would really be watching out for is when you're going second, it's pretty likely that you're going to run into Imperial Order. In games 2 and 3 you can also run into Anti-Spell Fragrance, and being a Pendulum deck, those hurt a lot. So I would definitely be running a lot of Back Row Disruption in the side deck, stuff like Cosmic Cyclone, Twin Twister, things like that. Here is the build I came up with for this deck. Now this is not the de facto best build, it is still a work in progress, but I do think that this is a really good way to run toons, and I do like this build quite a bit. I did also include some alternative options down below in the side deck. These would also be good side deck options too. Unfortunately, there is no replacing Magician Souls. It is the most expensive card in the deck right now. Until it gets a reprint, unfortunately, this deck is just kind of expensive. One option I included in the side deck that I would definitely recommend playing to some capacity is Droll and Lockbird, because it is searchable with Magical Abductor. Another card I included in the side deck was Access Code Talker. The extra deck in this deck is super tight, and I was struggling to figure out a way to put it into the extra deck. You might consider taking out Apollosa just because Access Code Talker is really important for going second, just because of how easy you can make it. I would also heavily consider playing Magician's Left Hand to play against back row heavy decks, and Called by the Grave for the side deck in case you're going first. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you'd like to see next in the comment section down below. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you'd like to contact me directly, you can do so over Discord, link in the description.